Welcome to Maintainer's Garage. I'm Bags. If I look like I'm about to be a heat casualty, it's because I had to turn my fan off because it sounds to me like it's killing my microphone. But I digress. It's hot here in Atlanta. Atlanta for a reason. Anyway, we're working on our wife's Slk350 R172 edition 2013 model. What are we doing? Well, I changed the oil and rotated the tires a couple weeks ago, and she told me she had heard a clunking in the suspension, so I went noodling around in there. Well, and so I found some stuff loose. I found one item, I think it was and I've got to look over there because that's where my factory manual is, and I'll show you pictures that way in case you need to see it, whatever, I'll show it to you. The torque strut, and what's the other one called? The cross strut? Call it the torque strut is one of them, cross strut's another. It's an interesting suspension design that I won't get into because quite frankly I can't explain it very well. I mean, I can say this is that part, this is that part, but it's not a typical A-arm suspension kind of deal, so I'm not going to try to BS you and embarrass myself. I'll just embarrass myself on my own without trying to BS you, and we'll call it even. But regardless, I got some new parts. I got a cross strut and a torque strut, and it was interesting. One of them was loose on one side, and I don't remember which side. One of them was loose on the other side. So I'm gonna replace one of these parts on one side. You might as well do both parts. Do one side, other side, both parts. So I'm doing all four parts. I'm only gonna show you the driver's side because it's the same on the passenger side. And that little stabilizer linkage here, I'm doing this because it was reasonably cheap. I think it was like 18 or 19 bucks for the part. I'm doing two of them, so 36 bucks for two parts. I mean, if you're doing this, you might as well do this, right? Right. When I say I found play, I found a tiny bit of play, like right. I don't know if you can hear it. It's just barely there. And there's none at 12 and 6. It's just 9 and 3. There. Hopefully you heard that. And when I got under the car and grabbed parts, that's where I found them loose. When I pull the wheel off, I'll get my other camera in here and show you exactly how I said, oh, okay, yeah, that shouldn't move that way. All right, pull the wheel off, 17 millimeter lefty-loosey. With Mercedes, because they use actual bolts instead of nuts, the wheel tends to stick on. If you just grab it and kind of pull a little bit, it'll come right off, and your bolts will go everywhere but where you want them to be. All right, so we're on the driver's side. That there, right there, is our stabilizer link. I couldn't get any real movement out of it. I couldn't get any movement out of this, but this one, and you're probably, I can't get it to make noise, and you may not see it, but you can feel it moving. So that's what made me call this one bad. And on the passenger side, it was this part that I could get just a slight bit of play out of. I will say, with the suspension loaded, I really had to put some muscle behind it to get it to move. That's how I ended up determining this was bad and this was bad. And the car's got 90-something thousand miles on it. It's a 2013, so 10 years, not so bad on these parts. Now, we do have an inner fender well here we have to take off because Mercedes decided to hide this stuff and a lower plastic panel that I'll show you how to take off now. The panel has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep, 6 fasteners are 8 millimeter. Lefty-loosey. One thing I will say is on this thing, wear glasses, safety glasses of some sort, because there's going to be all kinds of dirt and debris and stuff that's going to fall in your face. Just your eyesight's really hard to get back, and crap floating in it hurts, or crap falling in it hurts. All right, when you're down to the last fastener, go ahead and support it with your forearm and lefty-loosey. Slide that out of the way, and now we can clearly see that. Not both sides of this because they're suck, but I digress. And any sort of engine oil leak or leak of any kind, go ahead and look around. See if you see something that bothers you. So on the back side, you've got a retaining clip there. You've got a retaining clip there that it's hard to see. And then you've got a bolt fastener right there. And that's it. And then on the front side, you have this little clip. You pop that middle out, pull it out, and then you've got a bolt, and then another bolt there. And then the stuff on the interior, you can see you've got 10 millimeter. I should have a 10 millimeter there. 10 millimeter there. For anybody who doesn't know, that's where the little access panel that slides for your headlights. Another 10 millimeter. And there should be 2 retention clips here that aren't there. So, yeah, easy peasy. Yeah, so I'm going to be in the way. I showed you those fasteners. Easy peasy. Just pop them off, and I'll show you when I start pulling this thing out. Yeah, I did the passenger side already. Spoiler alert. But that's how you learn stuff. And part of me wanting to do this is help y'all. So some of the mistakes I make, you won't make. And sometimes, you know, if you only have to replace one item, you don't have to do both sides, then you learn on the fly with me. But hey, I'm always down to show you ways not to do things. All right, so we got all that stuff loose. So you just kind of got to grab this and pull, and it's going to feel a little awkward, but as you start pulling on it, it will continue to come out. Making sure I didn't miss something. And when you get up here, just pop it off of these studs and boom. Headlight cover. All right. And boom. All right, we're just going to go over this real quick. We're going to remove this end link first. Then we're going to come up here and we're going to remove the tie rod in. Then we're going to come back here and do this arm right here. Then we'll come up front and do that arm. We'll remove a couple bolts that mount the strut to the knuckle, and then we'll loosen this bolt, and this will be our hinge point in order to remove everything. All right, let's do some work. All right, these are 18 millimeter, if I can remember correctly. Yeah, some of these are really, really tight. All right, so we're going to get under here, and by the power of Grayskull it. Yeah, and that thing turned almost immediately. All right, now we got to get a little insert to hold that. And it is a T30? 40, T40. And that one will come off. That one comes off. And you don't need these fasteners. If your stuff came with fasteners like my new stuff. So these can go in the recycle bin as well. Here's a neat little trick to help you when you're working on suspension stuff sometimes. Alright, so you just turn the car on, turn the wheel, made this job simpler. We're going to jump to our ratchet, and if I didn't say it, it's 21 millimeters. Bunch of crusty stuff coming off of here. Okay, alright, so now we're ready to press this out. Let me go ahead and say God bless part stores for loaner tool programs. Now, if your part stores near you are like mine, and their loaner tools are very similar to this one, and it doesn't fit. It was too thick to get under there. I got this from Harbor Freight and grinded it down. The one at the auto parts store was like $45. This one was $20. So I ground on it until it fits. And what I do is I take the nut, and the good news is this nut and the one on this front arm and the one on that back arm are all the same. So if you tear the nut up, it's okay, because this has a replacement, that has a replacement. So you can use the factory nut here if you jack it up. Just what you want to do is get it low enough to where threads are engaged, but see these little metal tabs? They are covering up the threads. And you get that on one side, and you just start snugging it down. You're probably gonna have to play with it a few times until you get it to a spot where when you apply tension, it no longer slips and it just holds. Like, I think that's good. You're just gonna have to keep playing with it until you get tension on it. And once you do, then you should be able to slowly tighten it up and keep pushing down, and eventually it's going to pop, and you're going to get to the point where you feel really uncomfortable. You're going to want to keep going past beyond the point of your comfort. And just when you think you're super uncomfortable, you're going to have to go more. And you keep going. There we go. That's how it works. Yeah, totally normal. Nothing's uncomfortable about that at all. There we go. Yeah, everything's fine. Threads aren't damaged. This nut's damaged, but we don't care. We have a couple more spare. Now we're going to remove this. What we have is we have the ability to move this any way we want, and we can get on here, and it's a 21 millimeter, but we're going the opposite way. So what we need to do is hook up our steering again, and just hook it up, rotate it, and then we'll be able to manipulate it better. The reason we did that, if it wasn't clear, is we have to loosen this, which is that direction. We're going to be pushing against the steering arm, so instead of us trying to hold it, we'll have something applying an opposite force for us, so we can loosen it up. All right, and now we can disconnect our tie rod, and you can take your damaged nut and put it on here. This is not going to require as much force as that tie rod did. Well, I say that. The passenger did not require as much force as the tie rod, so I assume this one will probably be the same. Like so. Now we got to loosen those. All right, this is a 16 millimeter. If you have a spline, great. If not, 16 millimeter works. This is a 21 millimeter. Do not turn this. This you don't turn. You turn this over here, and lefty loosey, right? I'm gonna pull towards us and hope for the best. And if I didn't say it, the reason you don't turn this side is there's locking features inside of here that can snap if you spin that, versus the nut side. And that's out. Just on that washer on the nut side, is that in frame? Yeah. One side will be clean, one side should be dirty, and it should have the imprint of the nut on it. Hopefully that comes out. That's how you know which side goes where. Before we move to the forward arm, point out some things. In order for this to come out, this can't be here. Well, how do you remove this? Bunch of different ways. How am I going to remove it? There's a bolt here, there's a bolt over there, same size. I'm going to unbolt those. There's a fastener up here you can't see in frame, but I will show you. I'm just going to loosen it. what happens is as we take those off and loosen that bolt up top, that bolt up top becomes a hinge. This will swing out. You'll be able to remove that arm after you get it loose and pop it off and all that stuff. Right on? Right on. 21 millimeter. There we go. We can get this all the way out with a ratchet. Won't know till you try. Alrighty. We can set that off to the side. Now, we're going to get that one 11 millimeter. We're going to remove this one and that one fully. These things are properly tight. All right, and set that to the side. Now, we're just going to loosen this nut. Yeah, 15 millimeter on the front side and 21 millimeter here and 15 on the front, and we're going to loosen on the 21 millimeter nut side. Yeah, that allows that to hinge. So now we've got to pop that. Yeah, we'll take our same 21 millimeter broken one, throw it down there, and much like the other bar, or the other control arm, or whatever it's called, torque thrust stud or whatever, it does not take near as much torque either. Like so. Alright, so now we're going to loosen these up. Let me move you around. Alright, 16 on the front, 21 on the back, and pull towards me, lefty loosey. And don't spin this one. Mother sucker. Ay, ay, ay. And come on. Out. Pop down with a little bit of persuasion. And since this is hinged, come right out, which y'all may not have seen at all. Because this is hinged, that comes right out. Hopefully you saw that. And everything just goes back the way it was. So you want to start all the way over, and you want to deal with each one of these items one at a time, and you don't move on to the next one until you're basically done with this one. This comes with new fasteners that are coned at the top. That's their locking feature. So I'll be using the new fasteners. So we'll start by tilting this out, putting that in there, throwing the fastener on it. Once we get the suspension bolt in, we'll come back and deal with that. All right, and just kind of got to manipulate it around. Just like before, the head of the bolt goes forward. On this one, we're going to get it close to snug, and then we're going to stop because the torque will be done with weight on wheels. There we go. Now we're going to torque that. Now this is 50 Newton meters, which is 36.87, something like that, foot-pounds. So we're going to round up to 37. Then we got to go 60 degrees. I think it's spinning now. So we have a 6 millimeter Allen wrench here, and that will hold our stud. Well, if we get it going the right direction, it will. And it'll get to a point where we won't have to hold it anymore. Still set at 37 foot-pounds. All right, so this is a video edit.
the shots I took under the car to explain this did not come out at all. So I'm going to do my best to explain it again right here in a clear, simple way that hopefully the glare and everything doesn't get it all jacked up. All right, so what you do is you've got a torque. We're spinning it to 37 foot-pounds or whatever it was. And now you have to turn it 60 degrees. Well, you can pick a spot on the nut, and let's just say right there, and then you pick a spot 180 degrees out, and hopefully the glare is not horrible. I can't really see the camera, so we've got our spot. That's our second spot, right? So 180 degrees. Well, 90 degrees from there is right there. Well, 45 is approximately right there. So if you go a little more and you say, okay, that's 60. Now, is this precise? No. Is it close? Yes. So then you're like, okay, there's my 60 degree mark. There's my original mark. So if you mark the part like that, so as you turn this, when you get the original mark to match up to your part the 60 degree mark that you put on your part, you've known that you've gone 60 degrees. And it's that simple. The same applies to if it was 180 degrees. So yeah, you'd put it there. There's the other 180 degree mark. You mark the part. When you get there, that's it. Again, is it precise? No. Is it close? Yes. And for most stuff, it will work just fine in my opinion. Your mileage may vary. I'm not going to be able to do this in camera for you. This is going to take more than some effort for me to do. All right, we're close. I'm going to see if I can use a wrench on this one because I think our wrench might be a little easier for leverage. All right, and that's pretty close. That looks like it's right. All right, so this is our original mark. That's our 180 degree mark. The mark over here that may or may not be seen because I can't see it in the camera is 60 degrees. This red line right here on this part, that was where our 60 degree line was. So our red line, our original mark, lines up to our 60 degrees. Hopefully it makes total sense. And just like the front one, we're gonna put our ball joint in, get our fastener started, make sure the cone is pointed to the top. All right, get our bolt here. Head's going to be aft, nut's going to be forward. We'll get this kind of in the generic area, maybe. There we go, that looks good. We got our lock nut, our washer, clean side goes that way. Nut goes on with the metal tabs pointing forward, and just like the front one, we're just going to take up the slack here and we'll torque it with weight on wheels. Just like, taking it off, we're not going to spin the nut or the bolt, we're only going to spin the nut. We'll tighten the rest of that up with weight on wheels. We got to do that. 50 Newton meters, 38 foot-pounds. All right, now we're spinning. We have a 6mm Allen wrench. We're definitely starting to snug up. I wonder we still need our Allen wrench. No. And we've got our crow's foot. We've got our torque wrench set up. All right. Yep. Same deal as last time, 60 degrees. Pick a spot. Go 180. Go 90. And go 60. Which is right there. All right. And we'll crank down until our first mark meets our mark on our part. There we go. In there like swimwear.
Now we can deal with our two bolts, or what were they, 12 millimeter, 11 millimeter bolts. Torque them down and get our hub assembly back in order. Yep, 81 foot-pounds. All right, there we go. 19 millimeter and our 15 millimeter. And we're just gonna hold the head there to tighten down the nut. Oh, not tightening, we're loosening. Okay, that didn't work at all. And it is 100 Newton meters, or 74, so 73, I've got it written down behind me. So it's 74 foot-pounds. All right, now we've got to get our steering linkage back bolted up, put our factory nut back on, and tighten it down. All right, if I remember, this is a T30. All right, we're at the same 37 we've been at. And then I think it's 60 degrees. I gotta go look at it again. There we go. All right, now what is it? All right, it's our same 60 degrees. There we are, done. All right, we're definitely on the home stretch, campers. So we're gonna put this in, but just sort of start it, because you've kind of gotta get this lined up. You don't want to go too much into one hole like that while you're not in the other hole, because this takes a little finagling. There we go. Just had to get a little leverage to push it down. We're only gonna take up the slack here. We'll torque these, weight on wheels. Two new locking nuts. These are 18. I have an 18 millimeter gear wrench. 5 millimeter. Oh, wrong way. That's close enough. Let's get this one worked out a little better. Yeah, that's close enough. Now let's get some wheels on. We have lowered our vehicle. Our quick jack is just below the bottom of the car, because we're gonna have to lift it up to get it off our ramps. We've torqued the wheels. Now what are we doing? We're going to get the suspension to settle. And I know this seems funny, because it is, but absolutely necessary. We don't want that droop that we had, because it takes suspension a little bit to settle back down. We don't want to torque it up with that droop slop still in there. So, and clearly the metal on metal sound is the suspension, because it's loose. All right, we're gonna let that sit for about 10 minutes because we need a break, and we'll start under the car torquing it up. Clearly, this view blows for y'all. I'm just showing you that, yes, it's a pain in the you-know-what-is, but you can absolutely torque your suspension with weight on wheels. And no, you're not gonna watch me do this whole thing. I'm just gonna show you can do it, and you'll get the gist. All right, I can't believe this thing hadn't popped. There we go. Now for the back one. Oh yeah, thought there was just one. Are you kidding me? We had a good alignment, and we're going to put our fender liner back in. And the reason I did it this way is the shop that does my alignment, they double check my work for me. So that's if I didn't say it, that's why I'm did the alignment, had them look over everything, said, hey, yeah, you did a good job, everything looks good, alignment's good. jam up. When you put this in, you've got those studs, so you can kind of line those up, and then this goes on the inside of the slip. It's not hard. It'll just pop right in. And I will say, you want to make sure you get all of these lined up before you start worrying about the stuff on the bottom. Somebody who's just done this wrong, you want to start with these top ones first. Then I guess there's two top ones and then this outboard one, and then you go to the inboards. Now you can work on the outboard side and getting all this stuff lined up. Not an extremely hard job, just a little hard. I'll tell you, as always, torque and suspension with weight on the wheels is always a pain, because you got to torque it an ungodly, well, you torque it an amount, then you got to spin it an ungodly amount, and you're not in any sort of position to do that. You don't have the clearance, you don't have the leverage, and you just got to wing the snot out of it. Just do the best you can. That's all. I didn't show you much of the video because it's impossible to get a camera on there. Then number two, I was going to cuss and cry. So I didn't want to hear, I don't mind you hearing me cuss. I just don't want you to see me cry. Where did I? 10 millimeter socket. All right. Now the underside, it's just a matter of getting it, lining it up. You don't need to see that. It's fairly simple. Just make sure you just kind of stick a couple fasteners in at random places. Get them all started first, and make sure your those push pins, those retention clips line up before you start cranking down on any of the fasteners. So we've got our fender liners in, we got our under tray on, wheels are on, lug nuts torqued to 96 foot-pounds. We're done. Kind of a pain in the butt job, but part of it being such a pain in the butt is the torquing of the suspension with the weight on the car. That's always a problem, because trying to get the height, like a 4-post lift or an alignment rack's best, because again, you get that initial torque, but then you got to do the degree swing, and you know, when you've got limited space between the suspension, the wheels, and everything else, it can be a bear. But hey, if I can do it, you can do it. So don't be scared of it. Just say, hey, this is going to take me some time. It's going to be a challenge, and I'm going to knock it out. So anyway, thanks for watching Maintainer's Garage. Have a great day.